Hello, welcome to episode 7 of this game Devlog. When you see this, I'll be on vacation, so this episode was a bit rushed so I could upload something. I started by working a bit more on the trees from last episode. They now have different sizes and shapes. Also, they now tilt in different directions. For now, I will leave the trees behind and go back to the building construction. The next step is to allow workers to build walls. What you're currently seeing is my first attempt at this, which is basically using the exact same code as the floor. But you can also see the issue with that. The system only works for a single type of item. For the walls, I need to manage different types of building materials, wooden posts and planks. After reworking and improving the worker scheduling system significantly, they are now able to construct the wall, but they behave slightly different than before. First, they figure out which item is needed. This is currently done by communicating with the wall itself, which needs to be changed at some point. Then they enter the building. After that, you can see a very short pause as they determine where to install the post or plank. They always pick the first free spot. They then walk to that spot and install their item if possible. Should they at any point notice that the item is no longer necessary, they will go in a different state and just stop doing anything. This also needs to be changed. They should return the unnecessary item to the stockpile. But first I want to fix this issue. They determine their target as soon as they enter the building, so if two workers enter the building quickly after each other, they pick the same spot. They still each install an item, but one of them will stand at the wrong spot. I will need to create some complicated system to fix this. That's now fixed. When they first enter the building, they still do the same thing, but when they reach their original destination, they check whether someone is already in the process of installing a post, and if he is, they go to the next free spot. There is obviously still room for improvement, but this seems acceptable for now. Now that all the pieces are in place, I only need to implement a few final connecting items and then we can actually simulate the entire building construction. You can see that in the background now. They start with the floor, just as we did for the last few episodes. Actually, it's not quite the same, because the new system removes some of the coordination. Therefore, they have to walk more unnecessary distances than before. I have some ideas on how to reduce that, but I won't implement those now, because they are not trivial. Now they have transitioned to the first wall. They all get the wooden posts and install them. And this is where we encounter a problem. They all get another post, but the wall actually does not need that many posts. So they go into a cancelled state and stop doing anything at all. From now on, work is much slower, because most of them don't contribute any longer. So I will cancel the progress and work on that cancelled state first. While I was working on that, I encountered a rather nasty navigation bug. Those seem to appear from time to time. The waypoint system is quite complex because it needs to handle different frames of references for the inside and outside. It's now fixed and I can finally show you the complete house construction. Actually, I can't because it still crashed, but I've done enough debugging for now, so I'll do something different for now. I want to make the world look a bit more realistic on a larger scale. The first step is to increase the view distance without ruining the performance. To achieve that, I added a second level of detail to the ground. The lower detail version has a smaller texture and no holes for the building pits, so it's much faster to generate and render. This way you can see almost the entire map. Next, I want to change the map so that it becomes an island. First, I need to add some water. We're currently below the surface, and if we move the camera up a bit, you can see that the island is looking a bit weird. So that's my next goal, working on the noise function to generate a less hilly, more realistic island. I'll admit it's not a huge improvement, but at least there's some usable land on here as opposed to the steep mountains I've had before. Now I want to add some beaches to the areas near the water. By simply coloring the cells lower than 3 meters in a sand tone, I have now achieved that. Lastly, I want to create another procedurally generated plant, this time a cactus. I started by creating the object with the relevant properties, like collision. Then I got to work on the mesh. The type of cactus I'm going for has a grooved surface, so I started with this tube with a star-like cross-section. Because cacti don't have the same radius everywhere, I made them bulge out a bit. But this did not quite look right, so I added a different bulge style, which I like better. I also added some options for customizing the bulge style further, which you will be able to see in the final result. Because cacti aren't always quite straight, I added support for rotating segments. This obviously still looks terrible, but it's only a technical demonstration. Lastly, I added support for side arms. This generator now accepts a special format which specifies a cactus structure and generates a mesh out of it. All that's left is actually generating a convincing structure. I have now done that. I started with a straight segment and select one point where multiple side arms branch out. That's it for this week. I will be going on vacation, so I won't be uploading any videos in the next weeks. Please consider subscribing so that you don't miss any new videos. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.